Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for this discussion on children, their mental health, and the pandemic. We're absolutely delighted to welcome Dr. Amit Sen with us. Good morning, Dr.
Hi.
Sen.
Good
Welcome.
morning, Upasna. Good
And thank
morning.
you so much for joining us today.
So thank you very much for inviting me. I know your community is very active and involved, and I'm really looking forward to a good discussion with you. And I hope people will listen and take something away from it.
I'm so sure they will, Doctor. Before I start with my questions, a very brief introduction to Dr. Sen. Dr. Amit Sen is the director and co founder of Children First India and has been practicing child psychiatry for over 25 years. He has worked with both national and international organizations like the UN and the Human Rights Commission. And he's a big advocate for awareness building, community work, and social service.
Thank
So,
you. Mhm.
in my interactions with Dr. Sen, I've always been extremely happy and impressed. I will start my questions right away. I've structured the questions broadly age wise, but I think most of them pertain, they do relate to all ages of children.
Mhm.
So, doctor, beginning with the little babies, the 0 to 6 years old children between 0 to 6 right now, there's no social interaction and no learning. What can we do about this to help these very young minds?
Okay. So so there are two aspects of it. You know how this situation is impacting us, isn't it? All of us, include from babies to older children to teenagers and adults also. One is, of course, the impact of the COVID virus itself and what it's doing to our families, to our community, what we hear, what we see, what we feel in terms of fear and anxiety. That's one part of it, right? The other part is the consequences of the lockdown and the consequences are also of the protocols of how you treat people who contact COVID and what's happening to families as a result. So those are also the other things that impact us all, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah. So starting with the babies from 0 to 6, I mean, needless to say that we need to shield them from all the information and the fear that is around us, isn't it? And we have to make sure that they don't listen or see things which are very disturbing, whether it is on TV or it is on social media, and also in our conversation. So sometimes we, I think, forget that babies are very, very perceptive. I mean, little children are, and they can sense the atmosphere, the emotional atmosphere in the family. They can sense what adults, particularly parents, are going through. Right? They may not have the words to describe it, but they, imbibe it, they absorb it like a sponge, and they reflect it back to us in their behaviors, in their moods, etc. Right? So it's vital again to ask ourselves as parents, as adults, as to what is our own internal emotional state, because that will affect our children. So that's the first thing, right? The second thing, of course, like you said, that it's disrupted the kind of infrastructure and the routines and schedules that we would otherwise have fallen into automatically. Like if children were 3 4, they would probably be going to play school, or the slightly older ones would be going to school. And oftentimes we underestimate the impact of some of these unsaid structures around us. These systems, these institutions, they keep us going. I mean, for a family to get up at a certain time in the morning, to get their children ready to go to school, come back, have their lunch, maybe do a little bit of learning or homework, then go out to play with their friends, and come back again and spend family time. These are all rituals. They seem very mundane and repetitive, but they have a huge impact on children's development, because it gives them that sense of stability and security and predictability in their lives. They know what to look forward to, right? Intuitively, they begin to understand that, oh, the weekend is over now.
Yeah.
Mom and dad have to go to work now. I have to go to school. They understand that, and they fall into that rhythm. And those routines are very, very important indeed. In fact, many years ago, when I was working in England, one of my senior colleagues would say, "There's no badly behaved child. There's only a bad routine." So,
That's a
so
good one,
that's
doctor. that's that's
yeah.
100% true, I think.
Yes, indeed. A large part of what children take from the environment is the structure in it, right? So that's a one big thing that we have to Now, since the infrastructure and the institutions have gone, we have to build it ourselves to an extent. And for the 0 to 6 age group, the biological rhythms are very important. What time do they sleep? When do they wake up? Their meal times, etc. That has to be rhythmic. And if we are, and of course, as families, we are struggling with that. As adults, we are not able to sleep because we have our anxieties, we have our fears. Our sleep cycle is going all awry and all that, right? And again, if we carry a lot of anxiety and fear within us, that's going to affect their bio. I mean, the children will not then not sleep. If the sense that mom or dad is upset, or they might refuse to eat, they might get their own anxiety and so on, and mood swings and what have you. So that biological rhythm is very important, and of course, creating that emotional safety within the family, which means that you can't take completely disregard all that is happening around you, especially when a close friend, a family member, and God forbid somebody within the family gets the virus and the consequences of it. That has a huge impact on families and children, isn't it? Yeah. But as much as is possible to separate it out, and when you spend time with your children, to be free from that worry, right? As much as you can. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can do that, right? And when you spend the time, and again, get a structure in the day where you have, morning time is to maybe do some flow time activity which is creative, then afternoon is more free time, and then evening is more family time. Have a kind of a structure, not a very rigid one. I wouldn't say that you need to keep a very rigid one, but it becomes very difficult in today's times to do that, isn't it? I mean,
Absolutely,
we are all
absolutely.
humans, we're all struggling with the stress and everything, the chaos around us. So it is important to tell ourselves that these are difficult times, and we'll have to do our best. And as much as is possible, when we spend conscious active time with our little children, we must keep the worries aside, yeah, and play with them. So playing with them without any expectations, having fun, yeah, and loads of affection, right? These are three main things, and you will be able to do it only if you are, at least for some times in the day, feeling emotionally stable yourself. So the key thing is about, for the little children, especially for parents, the take home is how to keep your own self calm and at peace for some of the time in the day. I'm not even saying that you should be like a Buddha all day. You cannot be in today's times, right? But I'm sure there are ways of dealing with it, and we can talk about that, Vasna. We can talk
Of
about
course,
how
of
one can
course.
do it. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you, doctor. That was very, very helpful. In the same manner, doctor, some moms find that these young children don't express themselves emotionally in an effective manner. They can't really.
Hmm.
So, anything that you feel one can do to get them to open up more?
See, the thing is that they may not have the language. Of course, I have seen, kids from the time they're 4 years old, even three sometimes, the girls particularly, they have the vocabulary to talk about their feelings and
Yeah.
what is going on to a large extent. So, don't underestimate them. They're listening and they're making their own sense of the world around them, and they might be able to express themselves in, in, in very nuanced ways sometimes. Yeah. So by the time they're 5 and 6, many kids these days have a lot of language. But even without it, they do express themselves in many ways. For instance, if they are tense or anxious, they can have physical symptoms, right? Some of them might have, upset tummy, or complain of
Mm.
stomach ache, or they might vomit, they might throw up, or talk about feeling nauseous and feel like vomiting. Their sleep and appetite might get begin to get disturbed, and these are all ways the body is expressing the anxiety and the stress, isn't it? Right. So even if they are not able to verbalize it, these are important cues to pick up. Then some of the kids might begin to become very clingy, cry very easily, begin to have mood swings. So you can see it in their emotions. And those are also expressions, aren't they? Right. And
Correct.
again, if we deal with them in a behavioral way, that, oh no, you need to be disciplined, you can't have so many tantrums in a day, we are completely missing the plot, because actually what they need is the emotional connect and the affection and the reassurance that things are okay. And if at that time we try to discipline them, it goes south. It goes exactly the other way. And that's very important to understand, both for this group and, in fact, all age groups, right? The older kids, the tweens, the adolescents, often their emotional distress shows in terms of behavior difficulties. And sometimes, as the children grow up, particularly, they find it very hard to deal with. And then we come down heavily in terms of discipline and boundaries and consequences and punishments, and it doesn't work. It goes exactly the other way then. Yeah. So that's important to understand that children do express in many other ways, through physical symptoms, through biological rhythms. And of course, if it becomes even worse, some of the children, let's say who are toilet trained, might start bedwetting again,
Right, right.
yeah, those kind of things might start happening. And in the extreme cases, when children cannot deal with the intensity of feelings and emotions, they begin to withdraw. Even little ones do, they begin to reject food. They begin even to reject affection at the extreme. Yeah. And those are signals that we have to pick up. Of course, we have to also create what I call an emotionally safe space, where children feel comfortable in sharing what they're going through, even if it is a feeling like anger or frustration, to be able to express it, and without feeling that I'll be admonished or I'll be judged for that, right? Or crying and sadness and feeling unloved, etc., to be able to verbalize it or to in some way express it. There are other ways which where children express themselves, and
Yes,
that is play and art. And that
right.
is, again, there's some parents are able to pick that up. Many parents who will sit down with their children, in during playtime, or create a space where they get the crayons and the pastels and the paints and hand color, etc., can see changes in the patterns, the kind of colors they use, or the kind of stories they begin to build. They will, they often change with anxiety and fear. Yeah. Or if a child is sad, or if a child feels threatened, those stories begin to change. And it's important to pick that, be sensitive and pick up that cue and say something's not right, and we have to look within, right?
Absolutely, absolutely, doctor. So I have a few people online, Anshul, Vimi, and Sunita, who've asked questions, which I will address. So please just bear with us, and we
Sure.
will come to your questions as well.
Mhm.
I'm moving on to 7 to 12 years old, doctor, the tweens, as they call them.
Mhm.
As we all know from last year, almost everything went online. This affected children's routines, as you so rightly mentioned. How does disruption of the routine affect the mind?
So in various ways, I mean, disruption of the routine, of course, can make a child feel frustrated, insecure. They can feel helpless because they don't know what to do next, right? They often feel, often children, you will hear them saying that, oh, I'm bored, what do I do with my time? And then of course they begin to gravitate towards screens and things which give them immediate comfort, right? That's what they're seeking at that time, right? And or some other activities which again might be, from a adult point of view, not so productive or not so uh, healthy, so to say, right? And they gravitate towards it because they have no option. There is nothing there out there because they don't have the choices that they could have made. They can't ask to go to their grandparents or their cousin's house anymore. They can't ask to go to the park and play with it,
Yes.
uh, with their friends. They can't even go to their favorite guitar classes or football coaching. They can't go out to celebrate a birthday or an anniversary. They can't plan their holidays after exams. And how painful is that? All
Yes.
the those choices have gone from their lives, and that lack of routine and the lack of choices now for this age group becomes a huge issue. So from feeling frustrated and helpless, they have often, we've noticed many, and we've shared this with parents and even young people who are able to express themselves, say the kind of sadness and the grief they're going through. There's a sense of loss that maybe things will never become okay again. So last year when the lockdown happened, many young people would ask, so what will we do during Diwali? What will happen in Eid? Are we going to meet up family? I mean, then most of them did not end up meeting anybody. And how painful was that, right?
Correct.
And of course, the second wave has come and taken away whatever little hope we were beginning to build in the
Yes.
beginning of this year, January, February, particularly, beginning of March. We thought, oh my God, everybody was, breathing a sigh of relief that things are becoming normal again. And for children too, children who were, again, some of the older ones, looking towards, these are rites of passage, isn't it? I mean, when you go from junior school to middle school, you have become a big girl now. I'm mature and I need to take
Yes.
responsibility, but you don't have a space to even, use that motivation or that life skill that you might want to develop. You don't have the scope of doing it. So there is a lot of hopelessness and sadness and sometimes despair, right? And of course, the older children understand the fear and the anxiety much more because they are into social media. They are also exchanging many messages. They are also curious about what's going on. They might, and the younger ones do too, and the older ones are a lot more cued into what the conversations at home. So you might not realize, but when you're on the phone talking to your friend, trying to organize somebody's bed or oxygen cylinder, your kids are listening. And that fear is actually seeping into the atmosphere. It hangs like a gray cloud in the house, with
Yes.
particularly over the second wave, because the COVID crisis was for many people at a bit of a distance in the first phase. And the feeling was that if we take precautions, if we stay safe, if we
Mm.
wear our masks, do the distancing, sanitize and wash our hands, we'll be safe. And to a large extent, that was true. Not this time. This
Not
time, people and elderly people who haven't stepped out of their homes for more than a year have got the infection. So, the unpredictability of it, the uncertainty and the fear factor is so high this time, and kids are getting affected by that. And that fear and anxiety then begins to play up in their, again, biological rhythms. They can't sleep, they get nightmares, they refuse to eat, or if they eat, they will only demand junk food. Then the mood swings begin, then there is oppositional defined behaviors. Some of the anxious kids then begin to become, very perfectionistic. They want to take control of their lives. And in doing so, they become rigid in the way they want to lead their lives. And
right.
that itself then begins to become a problem, that I only want this and I will sit down and only do that,
Right.
and and again, then the tussle between the parents and particularly the tweens, it begins to show up, right? And parents equally are trying to get things under the control, aren't they, due to their own anxieties. And when they think that their children are becoming badly behaved or indisciplined, they often come down heavily and say that you will go to bed at 11, or you will not have junk food, or you will not have this. And that begins to again create a additional set of problems, banging doors and withdrawing. And that's when you have the anxiety and the depressive symptoms, so to say, they begin to surface. Yeah. um
Doctor,
uh,
on that point, I'd
yeah,
like to address questions that have come in from
sure,
some
sure,
of our members.
sure.
So, a lot of them of different age groups have said one's Vimi's daughter's 8.5,
Mm,
Sunita's daughter's in 12th standard, and Anshul has a special needs child. But they have all said that these children are not sleeping properly.
mm.
What could be the cause for this, doctor?
So again, I mean, because firstly, of course, they're not probably getting enough exercise, and
Right.
there hardly is a routine now, even for adults. We are struggling to get into these biological rhythms. That's one big thing. Then, of course, there could be anxiety and worries that they have. Right. Screen time is another big thing. Unfortunately, most of the activities that we do these days is through the screen, whether it's
Yes.
education, schooling, entertainment, social connect,
Everything. Everything.
looking at the news. Everything is the screen, and you can't forbid children from doing that. Of course, what you can do, though, you can have with, again, I mean, these things can be achieved through firstly creating that emotionally safe space that I was talking about, to make sure that you create a space where children are heard. You listen with your ears, eyes and heart, and not come to quick conclusions. Don't try to find immediate solutions, because that's not what children are looking for. They want to feel understood. They want to feel the compassion that you have for them and the empathy that you have for them. And if they feel that indeed they won't be judged, and you will, as adults, hold them emotionally, that is, then increasingly they are able to come out and talk about some of their conflicts and anguishes and all that, right? And once that atmosphere is created of safety and conversation at home, then you can together decide about how many hours of screen is okay. How do you spend the screen time? When should you stop? What do we do about the sleep time? There are many kids who very clearly talk about having nightmares. I can't go to sleep the moment I close my eyes. I have these pictures and visions. I can't just go to sleep, right?
Right.
Or some others who wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to sleep. So many young people report this to us these days. So firstly, accept that this is difficult. You can't enforce these things you know with too much of rigidity. You can do your best, and you can make the young people, especially if they're a little older, the tweens too, as well as teenagers, make them a party to this conversation, and make the decisions collaborative, and say, okay, let's all do this. Let's all shut down the screen at, let's say, 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. We will not look at the news, particularly the worrisome news,
Yes.
beyond a certain
Indeed.
point. And we will indeed do something as a family which is relaxing and which is happy towards the end of the day, right? And not bring up again what's happened to whom, and the latest
Mhm.
search and news,
Yes,
and so on, and what social media is saying, how it's buzzing at 11 or 12 in the night. Because the moment you do that, then your sleep has gone for a 6. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
So those are things that you can decide together with your kids, and then it works. Because if you try to impose it to them, they will shut their doors and do it, you know, outside your control. They'll do it in their own rooms, especially
Yeah,
the older ones. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Doctor, in a recent
Mhm.
interview, you talked about the worry virus, which really struck a chord with me. And you said uh, we should have, I even tried it with my daughter, and it was an eye opener for me. So, do elaborate, Doctor, in your own words, what is a worry break?
I'm so glad that you tried it with your daughter. Did
Yes,
it
I
work?
did. And it was, I did feel very helpless, Doctor, to be honest, but
Yeah, yeah,
I hope at least she offloaded, something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course. See, I mean, of course, the real virus is extremely dangerous and it's creating utter havoc in our world. But the worry virus is also there. It's pervasive. It's everywhere, right? We are constantly in fear, and even if we don't confront the fear directly, even if we are not trying to, deal with a crisis in the family, or looking at the, latest research, or looking at the positivity rate and death rate, the rates all the time, even if we are not doing that constantly, there is this worry that is lurking, right? So, sometimes what happens is when you confront something fearful or fearsome, yeah, then you want to engage with it to sort it out. But after some time, when you see that you cannot do anything about it and you feel helpless, you take your eyes off. So you might have heard many people say that I don't look at the news anymore. I've signed out of Twitter. I don't look at my social media anymore, right? But not looking at it completely, if you take a blanket kind of a decision, is that going to be helpful? In all probability, no, because it's there in the air, and even if you don't confront it with your conscious mind, it's going to seep into your being, right? It actually does that, I mean, and that's when the anxiety comes in. So the worry virus has to be dealt with. So if there are fears, if there are worries, what I suggest often are worry breaks, COVID worry breaks, which means that allot some time every day, maybe 2 3 times in a day, where you sit down and take stock of things, where you open your phone, you open your laptop, you connect with friends and family who probably have been affected. You look at again the news and the latest that's happening out there, and then close it after a while, after half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever your allotted time is. You say that, not now, I'll do it again only when the next worry break comes. And if you are able to do that, and many young people actually are able to do that, even if a worry comes, and say to yourself, not now, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or when I sit with my family at 6, I'll discuss it then, not now. You might even want to make a note of it, on your phone or in a diary, and say, I'll think about it, but not now, so that you free yourself with to do other things that are meaningful in life, and not get constantly plagued by this worry. Because if you are in a state of worry and anxiety all the time, you cannot function effectively at all. The logical mind shuts down, learning comes to a halt. If children are worrying all the time, they cannot focus. So many kids nowadays, besides of course the online classes, which can be very tedious and boring, they often talk about how worried they are. And there are I the common phrase I hear is, I overthink, and I can't stop thinking about all these things, and I can't focus on what I know I need to do. Yeah. And to be able to break free from that, if you are able to discipline yourself and say that I will allot some time to the worry, to confront it, to sort it out temporarily, and then engage with other things that are meaningful, that are, if you like to call it, productive, which are enjoyable, you know which are pleasurable, which give you joy and meaning. That's how you do it then, right? And there are many people, yeah, and there are many people who are able to do that, and
Absolutely.
that's a, yeah. Mm.
So, if any of you are going to try the worry break this week, I'm not even saying today, this week, drop us a little heart emoji in the comments so we'll know you're listening to us. Dr. Sen,
Mm.
Rashi and Sunita both have said thank you to you for the advice. I have a question from
Pleasure.
Hanika Meni.
Mhm.
She says, sir, in these times when a lot of us are losing family members, what
Mm.
is the best way to explain it to kids? I have 3 children in the age bracket of 4 to 9 years, and they have started questions like, when are we going to die? Where do dead people go? And she says she's petrified of these questions. I'm sure this is a
Yeah.
concern a lot of moms have.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's one of the hardest things to do, honestly, especially if a immediate family member has gone, who breaks the news to them, and how do you do that, right? So, firstly, of course, the age of the child matters, right? And conceptually, what can they understand? So that determines the language that you use, right? Yeah. With very little children, you often say things like that, your whoever, maybe a grandparent, maybe an uncle or an aunt, has gone to God or become a star or become a part of nature. However, it is also equally important, in any age group. And of course, as children grow older, they're better able to understand the finality of it. And it's important to express that finality, that this is irreversible. Whatever language you might like to use, you could use many other, again, make a lovely uh, book of a person who's gone, with pictures, with stories, and then there is an end where they become a part of nature, for instance, and however, oftentimes in times like these, when deaths are untimely, they're abrupt, uh, they snatch away somebody you were least expecting. It the having a closure to that grief becomes very, very hard. So sometimes you have to carry the people with you, and especially children who lose dear ones, they have to understand that this person will stay with you in some form or the other. The voice will stay, the memories will stay. you know they are a part of you in many ways. And sometimes when you talk or when you think, you realize you are thinking like Dadaji or Dadi or Nani. You realize that she's with you all the time, and she will sometimes talk to you even, or it's almost like that. That the voices are still there in your head, and you will always have them, they'll always be with you. So that's not. So again, many young people are able to understand that as they grieve through this process, that although in the physical world I have lost this very important person, but this person will be with me, and I will keep this person. The other big thing that we talk about, and we want people to do, is to ensure that the family is with the child when you announce this, and when you take the go through the process of grief. Now that sometimes is very hard. The harsh reality of COVID is that and this is the indignity of the deaths that we see now. You're just snatched away, taken away. Family doesn't see you. It's horrible, it's horrific, absolutely. I mean, I've heard people, close friends, family, who have lost their dear ones, who have gone through utter hell, in this respect. So, but what can we do for our children then? We can do our best to make you know uh, take the family along, even if it is virtual, even if it is a virtual prayer meeting that you do, even if it is a regular family time that you have through Zoom meetings or WhatsApp calls, etc., right? And try and create a bio bubble as much as you can. Also the community. So we know that in traumatic times, and I'll call these traumatic times because of the nature of our experiences. In traumatic times, what matters most when you lose somebody, or there's a huge sense of trauma or loss, is family support, support of community, right?
Right.
So and it's heartwarming to see how many parents are coming together to
Yes.
form. I mean, like for instance, your group, your community here, I'm sure is a very strong one, and people are reaching out to each other, helping each other. And it's important for children even to know that such and such auntie had called, and this family had reached out to
Right.
us. It's important to say that, because they get this feeling that we are not in this alone. There are people who care for us, who empathize with us. And once things become, or when we begin to become relatively normal, we might be able to again have that collective and have that feeling of togetherness again. Those
Yes.
are very, very important things for children and adults to know, and to create an atmosphere of togetherness, etc., right?
Right.
Because that's healing. The other thing that heals really is spirituality. And when I say spirituality, I'm not talking about religious rituals.
Yes.
Those also help, and which is why I think the rituals after bereavement, etc., in all communities are deeply embedded. But we are not even
Able
getting to
to
do
do
that.
those.
We are not able to do that. So how do you recreate spirituality? And that comes from connection with nature. It could be a mantra that you do, it could be animals that you connect with. Those also make you feel connected to the larger spirit, and that helps children a lot, right?
Yes.
And it's important to do that then, to. And I know of again, much to my pleasant surprise, families have decided to get pets during this time for young kids,
Yes,
and
a lot.
they're thrilled with it. It makes so much of a difference, and that's the spiritual connect I'm talking about. There's to understand that there are connections that we have outside, even if we can't step out. There are
Yes,
connections within home. There are connections outside home, which we can still bank upon. Although, I can say this with confidence that the quality of interactions in the virtual world is definitely not as good as in the physical space. And
definitely.
somewhere deep down, we have to strive for, that more wholesome interactions that we so treasure in our relationships, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And God willing, they will come back at some point,
Or
Doctor.
we have to create it again. We have to recreate it
We
in
have
different
to.
ways,
We
right?
really have to.
Yeah.
I have Meenakshi Agarwal online, Doctor, who says it's a wonderful idea of a memory picture book. And
Yeah,
I know she's a teacher and she's going to use this for sure, Doctor, with her children.
that's
For
lovely.
sure.
I hope this helps. Yeah.
Definitely. So,
Mm,
Doctor, this is, I think, a question that is across all age groups. And
mm,
Rashi, this question is also for you, for what you mentioned. In the event of an outburst, a tantrum, or a breakdown, Doctor, how do we
mm.
handle it?
See, again, first thing is that we should not focus on the behavior. Many times when there is an outburst or a tantrum, where there could be rudeness, there could be anger, there could be, physical aggression even sometimes. Uh, when the child is younger, it's easier to handle. You can hug the child, you can pick up the child, but when as the children grow older, it becomes harder to do, no doubt. But the key thing is, don't focus on the behavior and say that how could you talk like that, or how could you do this to me, right? The thing to say, or thing to focus on, is the feeling that is underlying it. Yeah. So underneath every behavior is a feeling, and the child might be feeling extremely um, anxious, angry, confused, or even very, very fearful, which gives rise to this behavior. And to say that, oh my God, you must be really troubled or suffering. What is happening inside? Do you want to tell me about that? Now, of course, when the tantrum happens, if you can, even if the child is older, if you're able to give them a hug, a tight hug, that's great, because and again, can fulfill two purposes. One is, of course, to contain the outburst and the damage the outburst, the physical aggression can do, but also try and so don't do it with anger. Holding down is not like a security guard or a police would do. It is coming from a parent, and remember that it has to come with, no doubt, a degree of firmness, that I'm holding you because I want to keep you safe. Yeah, so safety is important, but I'm also compassionate. I'm also, my God, what's happening to you right now? How much do you be feeling that compassion? The moment the child feels that compassion, they mellow down, and you will notice the difference the day that you actually approach this with your own frustration and anger. There could be a difference of heaven on earth in the way the child responds, right? And then to ask, and then gradually, as things cool down, to create that emotional space gradually when the child is ready to have a conversation around it. What made you do it? What is it? That's not like you. You're such a sensitive child. I know how careful you are with your little brother, but today it seemed that you know all that had left you. I wonder what you were feeling at that time. If you're able to do that, then we are able to actually address the underlying feeling, and then there could be a conversation around it, and then there can be strategies about how to deal with it the next time it happens. Again, acknowledging it's difficult, acknowledging that these are not usual times, and sometimes
Yes,
all of us lose our temper, lose our shirt, you know and that doesn't make you a bad person necessarily.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree, Doctor. Again, Ayalita and Anshul, we addressed the question on sleep. So maybe you'll have to go back and watch the Facebook Live again, because they're mentioning they're waiting for an answer about sleep. Dr. Sen did address that question. Uh, Doctor, another important question I have: how can we be assured we have listened to our children? Like, especially as they're older, like they say, you can't get through to them.
Hmm.
So I've heard this term used very often. What signs are there, or how can we know that, yes, they
Hmm.
have, we have listened more than they're listening to us,
That's right.
you know?
That's a very important point you made,
Yes,
Bas. That
yes,
first to listen to them for them to listen to us, right?
Absolutely.
And again, I'll go back to the emotional, emotionally safe spaces where we listen from our heart, listen with empathy, and we are not looking for quick solutions. We are not there to rescue our children.
Yeah.
Sometimes it also, um, is useful to share some of our own uncertainties and confusion, not break down completely, because children don't like that at all. In fact, they feel more confused and very insecure if they find that their adults around them are also crumbling, right? So if you completely break down in front of a child, and sometimes that might happen, I mean, we are all humans after all. I mean, don't beat yourself about it, but sometimes it might happen when you're facing a huge tragedy or a personal loss, and this might happen. But it's important to, in during most of the times, to have um, empathy, but controlled empathy, meaning not break down with your child. So if your child is breaking down and crying and becoming angry, and if you empathize 100%, you'll probably also start doing the same. So the idea is to actually empathize, connect with the feeling, and yet remain in control. And if you're able to do that, right, children increasingly feel safe to come out with what they're feeling, to talk about it. The way we know is that you will see this. You will increasingly see them coming and sharing time and space with you. They're coming and sharing what's happening with their friends and their families, of some anxiety about school or future. They might begin to come and talk about them to you, right? And you will know that they are indeed. But to be able to get there, make sure that you also have many other conversations which are fun, which are to do with hobbies and interests and music and even video games they're playing. Get into their world and say, what,
Discoveries, like
sorry?
you can educate yourself through your children, I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah, yeah, and be curious about it and say, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And that's important as well. Those are, in during other times also we often talk about, when we talk about relationships with our young people or anybody for that matter, an emotional bank account. So we have deposits and we have withdrawals, and every time you say a no, or you punish a child, or you criticize a child, or even look at them with stern eyes, you're making a withdrawal. But if your deposits are good, then some of the withdrawals that you have to make, you sometimes have to put down a boundary. You have to say no sometimes, and that works well only if you have good deposits. And these are the biggest deposits. If you spend time with your child in doing things that they enjoy, not what you think they should do. And that's crucial. So, especially during this time, if you're able to engage your youngsters, the teenagers particularly, or the tweens even, in things that they really enjoy doing, then we are, we're in a better place. And you'll find that they're sharing more, than they're coming out more. In fact, also the other thing that, again, we often talk about, you know, uh, as we say, drop the rope. I mean, don't be, don't think that as a parent you have to be in control all the time. In fact, the approach that we often take is, we call it, you, me, and we. So I'd like to listen to you. What do you think of it? What do you feel about it? And give it a good listen. Try to understand it, rephrase it, reflect on it, and then say, I understand where you're coming from, but you know what? I have certain other thoughts, and this is how I feel about it. Say you're discussing screen time and you're getting worried about it. And of course, express what you're worried about and say it very clearly, transparently, honestly. And then say, okay, now that we have talked about it, do you think that together we can make a plan which will be a bit of a compromise and mutually respectful? And that's the third thing: respect. Respecting your children's feelings, respecting their choices, and respecting their personal space. you know it's very, very important to give them that personal space and say that, you know um, it's all right if you want to shut yourself in a room and listen to your music or talk to your friends for some time. I'm all right with that. That's important to say to your kids, that we trust you to take the right decisions and make the right choices, right? And if that and again, that builds trust, and the more there is respect and trust, the more they will come out and interact with you. And this we've seen with our own kids. Of course, they're both young adults now,
Yeah.
but and all through the teenagers, the moment we would give them that freedom with honesty, express our concerns, but at the same time say, we know that you'll be making good choice, and they would then, in all most circumstances from our inner judgment, would make good choices. Sometimes their choices might still worry you, but what would happen is they would come out of their rooms much more. Even I mean, the more we have actually done this in our own family, the more we find the kids coming out and wanting to spend time with us
Right.
during the day, in the evening, and it's very refreshing to see that. And these
Yes.
are exactly the things that we are trying to do at home.
Lovely. That's
Yeah.
wonderful, doctor. I'm I have a lot of thanks for you, Doctor, from Kanika and Rashi, and also from Minakshi, who says you've given excellent holistic inputs. So thank you so much for that. Coming back to teenagers, Doctor, I know you've also had a personal experience with this. Board exams, they were a stressor and a worrying factor even pre-pandemic. And currently the ICSE 10th has been cancelled, but they're still saying they will hold the 12th standard boards. I remember last year I had like 3 to 4 traumatic months, not knowing what's going to happen. Um, how is this decision in limbo affecting the teenagers? Again, I'm not talking about I know it's affecting the moms and the parents, but how do you feel it's affecting? Because it's such a big benchmark, the boards, like,
True. Not well at all, you know. Pasna,
yes,
I'm deeply worried about it. I have a lot of young people who've reached out. Some, you know, who were doing very well, who used to see us. Some, uh, for the first time, you know, with uh, so much of anxiety and hopelessness. You know, and this is where I think our system, our state has failed us big time. I mean, not just with the oxygen cylinders and you know, hospital beds and all of that, but even in this, it's failed our children. You know, all the other international boards, they've canceled their exams, all of them,
yes,
you
yes,
know,
I
across the
have.
board. But
Yes,
our, I mean, 12th boards, for instance, both CBSE and ISC,
I see.
ICSE,
Yes,
yeah,
doctor.
they decided to postpone it yet again. You know, kids were anguished, you know, as it is, because 12th is a very stressful time.
It
And
is.
one of the things they look forward to is somehow go through this grueling year and completing their boards by the time it's end March, and breathing a sigh of relief and go and
Yes,
do other things in their lives, you know, and which are the, again, rites of passages. Go for a holiday
absolutely.
with their friend, go for a family holidays, hang out, you know, do all their hobbies and fun stuff. None of that has happened. It's been taken away. First time they postponed it from March to May. Okay,
Yes,
that itself
yes,
was hugely anxiety provoking. And so many young people say, oh my God, 2 more months of the same thing. How will we deal with it? And then suddenly come May, they've postponed it indefinitely.
yes.
It is, I mean, this is not okay. It shows how insensitive we are to children's needs, unfortunately, you know. And it has caused a lot of anguish, and many kids have started having anxiety and even depression due to this. So many of them were looking forward to finishing their boards, doing what they need to do, and take that other big step towards college.
Yes, to go away to college, which again is,
Yeah, and now they're saying the exams will be in July, August. When will they go to college then? Because if July, August are exams, then the results will come out what, September, October? Colleges start by July, August. What are these kids going to do? Can you imagine what's going through their minds and how much of a sense of loss and frustration, confusion they must be feeling, right? And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But now we have to think about, again, I mean, if the state isn't doing it, what do we do about it? We have to think like that. We have to think about how do we come together. And I think that as you know, uh, a you know, community, a parent body, I mean, you have a strong voice. You're a very you know, active and functional body, and I know that you do a lot of you know,
yes,
advocacy with schools and all of that. Please go ahead and do that. And you know, because these things need to change, you know, and
they
schools need to take
definitely
it
do.
up. Schools need to understand it and become a part of that community and go to the state and say, sorry, this is not acceptable. This is not acceptable for our children. We are not going to take it. We are not going to accept it. We will fight it. And that needs to be said in different, you know, forums.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Doctor, I have a question from Radha. She says, what about children, teens living abroad? How can we be there for them? This is
Yeah. Yeah.
another huge, I think,
That's true. That's true. I also know a lot of young people who, I mean, they've some have chosen not to come back for good reason. You know,
yes,
in this
because they
mess.
don't know about their visa status also, no, doctor.
That's
Like,
true.
they don't know,
That's true.
you know.
And many parents are asking their kids not to come back, you
Yes,
know, because of all the risks involved, isn't it? Right.
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you know, now they're talking about the third wave affecting young people and children. There's so much of anxiety out there, and many other countries have you know, dealt with it differently. And
Right.
yeah, there are many kids, especially, yeah, in UK, US, Australia, who have, some of them have actually got stuck. There's
Yes.
no way they can come back. And uh, how do we support them again is a good question. How do we virtually create a community? How do we encourage them to make friends in a community out there? Uh, Fortunately, some of those kids have family in the countries they are in. And again, I often, when I do sessions with them online, I encourage them to remain very closely connected, not just with friends, but also with extended family in those
Right.
countries, and go and visit them whenever they can, because things are opening up in all these
Yes,
countries, aren't
they
they?
are.
Yeah.
They are indeed.
And yeah. And of course, we have to sort of be um, proactive and creative in creating digital spaces as well. So there is one young person I know, and I'm sure there are many others. In fact, I know more than one who have lost a grandparent while they were abroad. you know
Yes.
and it's heartbreaking because they're seeking that comfort and being together with the family, and they can't come back. And again, to be able to create that space virtually, even if that's the only thing that you can do,
Yes.
to go through the process of grief, to to create that. I mean, it's second best, but we have to do what we have right now. With what we
Absolutely.
have, and that's why, um, yeah, the community is very, very important in this respect, whether it be extended
Absolutely.
family, friends, immediate family, of course. And I'm sure all the close, I mean, the immediate family is constantly in touch with kids who are abroad, isn't
Yes,
it? Yeah.
yes, definitely, doctor. I hope that helps, Radha. And we know it's tough, but we're just trying to address whatever we
So
can right
sometimes
now.
again, I online, to use the online platforms more creatively. Like for instance, making this album can be in physical space if you're at home, but you can
Yes,
also create an album digitally, right?
online,
where,
correct.
where, where you can again, you can upload all the pictures you've taken in the last few holidays, and
Yes,
make a
and
story out
ask
of all the
them to
holidays,
contribute to it as
and
well.
exactly, ask them
Yes,
to contribute to it. Can you help us with it? We are making this album, and then you make a little story with music on in it. It's heartwarming. It gives, so again, flesh out some of what we have been through, because
yes,
see, in today's time, particularly in our country, because of what we're going through, hope has gone away because we don't have a clear future in front of us. There's so much of uncertainty. So when hope goes away, a large part of who we are, where we want to reach, our identity gets shaken up, especially for young people, because their identity is anchored in their plans for the future of who they want to become, isn't it? And when that gets taken away because of the mess that we are in with the board exams, and whether they can go to college at all, or the ones who are stuck out
yes,
there, then what do? You can actually, take one day at a time and make each day meaningful by some of the things we talked about today, right? And the other thing you can do is you can dip into the past, with things that we used to do when children were younger, books that we used to read together, videos that we used to watch together. Can we watch Jungle Book together now? Together, we do a Netflix party and
yes,
get snacks and drinks and see what we think about Jungle Book or Mary Poppins now.
yeah.
And that's so heartwarming, because you can, we call it in therapy reauthoring your life. Because many times in the rush of life we don't have the space or time to sit to reflect on what we have been through. And I often give this example that many of us, when we go for a holiday and take hundreds of pictures, we hardly ever look at them again,
Yes,
isn't it?
absolutely.
But now we have the opportunity to do that. And what that does is it fleshes out who we are as people, even from the memory that we have, in the
Yes,
kind of things that we used to do, in the collective experiences that we've had, or even personal experiences that we've had with friends, with family, and to give it another meaning altogether. And
absolutely.
that becomes, and that also then adds to the sense of self.
Yes,
It also gives young people agency of
yes.
something true, something creative, something meaningful.
I remember Dr. Sherja had shared how she read out a bedtime story to now your children who are more
Yeah,
more than teenagers, and I thought that
absolutely.
was so beautiful, and I actually did it with my kids who are teenagers, and it was really
Isn't it?
fun.
It's
It
heartwarming.
was,
In
yeah,
fact, what we did? What we did was we all went into those bookshelves with those old, sort of hard page books,
yes,
4 or 5 pages, and the Hungry Caterpillar and those kind
yes,
of
yes,
books. And we each picked one or two books of our choice, and we read it to the. So our kids also did it. So
okay,
both of us did it. The kids read their favorite books to us.
how sweet.
And it was, again, it brought back all the memories of
Right.
being as a family when kids were little, the warmth, the affection, all of that came back. And that actually then gives you again a sense of belongingness, a sense of self, because we are missing out on the hope part, the future part, isn't it? Yeah.
Totally, totally, doctor, totally. Coming back to the questions, doctor, Donna says, how much time in the room is okay for a pre-teener? Mine seems to be shut in there online the whole day, as if all the mess happening outside the room is none of her business. I wonder if it's a way to escape, or is it just the online requirements of school and homework?
So, of course,
It's a
it
tough
can
one,
be.
Donna.
It can be all that. It can be all that. Yeah, it can be a way to escape things that are really daunting and anxiety provoking for a teenager. It could also be that uh, when they do come out occasionally, if she or he does, the questions that are asked of them. So the questions are about how much screen did you do today, or when did you go to sleep? Will you not come and spend some time with us, and all that? Then they will shut themselves up more, right?
Oh,
But if you are more open, so again, it's a tone of voice, the questions that we are asking, and if there is any judgment in it, right? So if we feel already and getting anxious about how much screen time they're spending, it is likely that we are asking a question with that anxiety in our voices,
mm.
or that perhaps an element of judgment there, that you're not doing the correct thing. And the moment we do that, they shut down even further. So the thing to do is to first accept that reality and say, of course, they're doing it for different reasons. Why don't we ask them, why are they doing this? That may be a good way to start, you know and say that I of course, I have been worried about your screen time, and I don't know whether you are or not, and I don't want to make it an issue between us, right? But I just wanted to understand, how do you spend your time, and if there's anything we can do to help you. If we start like that in a neutral position, reaching out to them and saying, I am concerned, but let's not even talk about that. Let's talk about what you think about how your life is now, and that might start. Or if you can engage them, you might again show curiosity about what they're doing, the kind of topics they're discussing,
Yes.
the music they're listening to, the movies they're watching, without judgment.
Or
Because
even
many
what
times,
homework she's doing. I mean, something.
something
I
of
hope.
her interest, something of her
Yes.
interest.
Yes.
And that might begin to open the doors. Again, in the emotional bank account, we have to, in this very difficult situation where doing deposits is often difficult, because if she's shutting herself, it's so difficult to reach out. But you can reach out through messages, through little cards. You make a little card, missing you, baby, or something like that. Or whatever you think your teenager might. I mean, if you call it a baby, she might not like it at all. There are so many things that you would know much more, because you're the
Of
parent who
course. Of course.
what connects with your child. You can send them lovely email messages, your WhatsApp messages, write them a sweet email remembering these things, or talk about, let's say, the books or the videos that you brought out and said, I was really craving to do this again with you, like we used to do, few years ago. And somewhere it might, you know turn things around.
I hope this helps, Donna. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I really hope so. Doctor, another important question I had was, is decreased school performance to be expected, for want of a better word, normal? How do we teach kids to deal with this?
Yes, absolutely. Because they're in so much of stress and boredom and frustrations. Because,
And
see,
online
again,
school is just not getting through to
it's
them,
not getting through to them.
to a lot of,
Yeah.
them.
I mean,
So,
at best, probably one fourth, 20% of kids gain from online classes. And I think in their own anxiety, schools also up the ante and make it even, heavier and heavier. I've heard kids saying that, what our school has said, now that you don't have school, you have nothing to do. So let's give you more homework.
yes,
Yeah, that's
holiday
crazy in my
homework.
mind. Holiday homework, cutting short the vacation time, and
Yes,
saying, no, we have to. I mean, it's becoming harder and harder. So, uh, see, again, if you're not emotionally stable, learning becomes much harder. You can't focus if you're anxious. You can't focus if you're frustrated or angry or sad. You can't, right?
you
As it
can't.
is online, the online medium is doesn't do half of what the physical space in school does. School is not just about going and attending classes and learning. School is about so much more that kids go through: their social skills, their self-regulation, making friends, so much more meaningful it becomes for them, isn't it? Now we don't have any of that,
Yes.
and we expect the kids will sit online and do exactly the same. And schools expect, and there are many schools who said this, and there was of course, again, I'll give you an example of one school where they announced, earlier this year, before the second wave started, that the senior classes will have exams offline because things were opening up,
Yes. Yes.
and the parent community came down and said, no way will our children come and do it, because the whole year they have done online classes, and now you expect them to go and do offline exams. How stressful is that, right?
Correct.
It's been so heavy for them already, right? The learning has not been half as good. So again, we have to, I think, be advocates for our children as
Yes.
far as education is concerned. Accept that learning, or performance particularly, is not going to be as good. Learning can, though, right? So oftentimes, again, I uh, ask this question, that how can your role as a student uh, differ? How what can you do about it now that you have only online classes, so much of classwork and homework to do? And many young people have said, well, I watch videos about my favorite subject, and some others say that many times we pick up a topic, and my mom or dad, they also read about it, and we have a great discussion on it, right? So learning can happen through other mediums. You can watch documentaries, you can have discussions, you can make charts and projects from it, rather than just think about online classes, classwork, and homework. It makes it the most tedious and boring thing, most frustrating for young people, and it is bound to affect learning and performance. So let's not, what I would suggest is, let's not focus on performance, which is why so many more, reasonable and wiser education systems have said, let's not have exams. Even
Yes.
colleges
I
have said
agree
that.
with
Right?
that.
There's so many universities who have said, we're not going to, even a college like Cambridge, university like Cambridge has said, this time, by the way, Cambridge is not doing any exams.
Right.
No proper exams. They have open book exams, and
Yes.
everybody passes. Nobody's failed. In a place like Cambridge, one of the most competitive places in the world, they have also taken a decision. But our schools will have exams.
Yes, because they have to have exams.
Yes, because it's so important for our children to learn. But actually, I hope they understand that it's counterproductive. They're actually not learning due to the steps we are taking, right? And there
Yes.
are other ways of doing it. Learning can still happen. Let's not focus on performance. Let's not focus on marks. Let's
Yes.
not focus on grades. Let's focus on the learning and how this reality can help us learn. How can we learn to cooperate and collaborate with each other?
Yes.
How can we learn to have compassion and empathy with people? These are also huge learnings. This
Correct.
might save us as a species. If we
Yes.
don't do this, we might be extinct in 100 years. I
Correct.
hope we understand that, right? Yeah. And these are
True.
huge learnings that we can have. So let's not focus on grades. And these are the new things that I think we need to focus on. Question the given, as I often say. Question what is success, question what is progress, and then
Absolutely.
we might begin to change the goalposts a little. It's
Absolutely.
heartwarming to see how communities are coming together, the compassion and the empathy, and how people are stretching themselves to help strangers,
Yes,
going out of the way.
it's
Yeah,
beautiful, doctor.
it's
It's really
beautiful, isn't
beautiful.
it? Yeah, that's the learning that our young people need.
We've
And
had a few cases in our community itself where we've highlighted them as Samaritans.
yeah, yeah,
Truly beautiful.
isn't it?
I
Yeah.
have Ayalita and Radha saying thank you. It's been very informative. And Kanika loves the idea of the emotional bank account. So I do hope you will use that, Kanika, for sure. And Suja says, my son and I leave notes for each other on the laptop and screens and on the
Lovely.
refrigerator. That's a great idea,
Such
Suja.
a good idea. Yeah, yeah.
And
I like
Neelu,
the refrigerator bit.
yes. Neelu, we just addressed that question about performance, so please do see that again. And Anshu says, sadly, some schools did have offline exams. Yes, we were quite upset about that, I must say. It was really a bit stressful for us all to take that. Uh, Dr. Sen, there's so much news about the third wave. First of all, is it true? What should we do to prepare ourselves and our children? And as a country, are we equipped to handle it, especially mental health? I remember you gave a statistic in your last interview about the ratio of mental health in our country, and it was horrifying to say the least. So the third
See,
wave,
from
doctor.
of course, I mean, see, I am not the expert in that line,
Yes,
although
yes. I understand.
with my basic training of being a doctor and the readings that I've done and the research that's coming out, talking to my colleagues and friends who are, in the field, pediatricians, pulmonologists, etc. Of course, again, the opinions are very divided. There is likely to be other waves, not third, maybe a few more others, but given the trajectory of pandemics in the past in history, it is likely to become so. This time on, it is the lethality of the virus. How infective it is and how lethal it is uh, has taken everybody by surprise. Because typically speaking, viruses they become they keep mellowing down. Like when the flu pandemic started, and way back in 1918 to 20, I think it took 2 to 3 years for it to settle. But flu has been there ever since, and it's a cyclical thing. And this might also become a cyclical virus which keeps coming every season, and we learn how to deal with it, right? And we begin to again. So maybe things like masking and social distancing might remain a reality for some time to come. Maybe a couple of years. I don't know. It's very difficult to predict. But I do think that um, our experiences this time is a big learning curve, and we should be able to prepare as a community. Right now,
Yes.
whether the state will learn from it is something that I have no answers to, because if they could have done even this time, in my opinion, and many other experts and doctors that I've spoken to, there were various warnings at different stages. We sold off all our vaccines to other countries.
Yes.
90% of our vaccines from SII was going to other countries. Why could we not see this? Now, whether they will see this time again, whether that will become our priority, whether we will invest in health and mental health is something that is difficult to predict, given the approach that our state has often taken, especially towards mental health. You'll be surprised that in the health budget, which itself is one of the lowest health budgets in the world, our neighboring countries in Southern Asia have much double or sometimes triple the amount of health budget in terms of percentages of their annual budget. And this time on, it was increased, it was doubled, yet it was much significantly lower than our neighbors, uh, out of which only in the health out of the health budget, only 0.05% is allotted to mental health. 0.05% to mental health, out of which there's hardly anything that comes to child mental health. There is no talk of child mental health at all,
Yeah,
right?
because
So
it doesn't exist.
it
It's
doesn't exist, right? And so who's sort of bearing the cross here? Who's taking on the responsibility? Schools are, fortunately. So many, of
yes.
course, there are good policies. The policy is that every school should have a counselor. Yeah, we should look at, there should be inclusion. So the new education policy, for instance, talks about education, inclusion, etc. But where will the resources come from? Who will fund it? Where will the people who will drive this come from? Is there a plan for it? That's where we fall flat, I think.
Yes.
you know
Yes, doctor.
and of course, as a community, as schools and NGOs, there's so many NGOs who are working, absolutely doing a marvelous job with the marginalized kids, for instance. I work with a few, and I know
Yes, I know.
how hard they have worked through this pandemic, and kind of risks they have taken.
Yes,
The staff and
absolutely. True.
the managers and the trustees and all of that, right? Yeah.
Very
So,
true. Very true, doctor.
yeah.
Very true.
So
Uh,
we as a community have to come together, and that's where the collective, the community is important. Our learning should be there. Our learning should be there, because again, when your trust is broken in such a big way, when you have felt so let down, by the state and the machinery and the infrastructure, then you have to do something about it yourself. That's what we are doing right now, aren't we?
yes. Yes,
That's why
absolutely.
we are forming all the communities, right?
True. True, doctor. True. Doctor, in fact, Children First is running an initiative called Rahat.
Yes.
So please share a little bit about that, doctor, because I'm sure our members would like to know.
Yes. So Rahat is a free service to people who can't afford, you know, assessments and counseling and therapies from organization like ours. We know that the other helplines and the government services are completely chock-a-block. They hardly have any
Yes.
access. In any case, they're focusing on COVID, most of these facilities and hospitals. So we did it in two phases. We did it in the first lockdown, and we did it for the age group of between 18 to 25, right? And because, again, like you said, many of these kids were stranded, because the
Yes.
lockdown came so suddenly, whether, in our
Correct.
country, mostly in our country, some abroad. and hundreds reached out to us. At that time it was a free service, and that was about a brief therapy package of 6 sessions. So each one would be allotted a therapist after the initial assessment, and they would be taken through. And it was very helpful. We got excellent feedback from many
Great.
of these hundreds of young people who availed of it. This time on, we are actually focusing, because the nature of it is very different. We are focusing on people who have got affected by COVID in a direct way, lost a family member, have had COVID themselves, or some family member has got COVID, got admitted, or have had some very, uh, very personal losses, etc. And this time it is, again, although it is through Zoom, but it is an audio service. It is it's like a support service. So our therapists are supporting people who have gone through extremes of consequences due to COVID. And this time it is open to different age groups, right? So it is open for young adults from 18 to 25. It is also
Right.
open to adolescents who are between 15 and 18 with parental consent. And it is open for parents of children who are 14 and below.
Okay.
So they can reach out and they can have a maximum of 3 such sessions with,
Great.
3 such sessions. But these are audio sessions. And again, we are getting, people, or giving us good feedback about the usefulness of it. So we would urge people to reach out to us, and we'll be very more than happy. And if you have, again, families and young people, again, there are families who have taken such a big financial hit, isn't it? People have lost
Oh,
jobs,
yes. Yes. That's another
again, from,
aspect altogether of this
yeah.
pandemic.
And again, if we're able to help some of those families during this crisis, we'll be more than happy to do it. So Rahat, again, there is a phone number. I don't know whether you have
Yes,
that,
yes, I have it, doctor. We'll be
Upasana.
sharing
Okay,
it on our Gurgaon Moms page
okay,
and in our community later today.
okay,
So I
okay.
wanted
Thank
you
you.
to explain it first before we shared it. So please do look that up, everybody. And my last but not least question, doctor, please share 3 simple tools for moms to use with children of all ages.
So I'm going to highlight 3 things from the conversation that we've had
Yes,
today, right?
yes,
Yeah.
doctor.
First thing is that please look within and see what you're going through. Yeah. And that's the biggest favor you would do to yourself and to your children. Look at your inner world, look at the feelings that you're getting, and see if you have your own oxygen, figuratively.
Yes,
Yeah, you might, you know, hopefully not require the oxygen otherwise, but you get your emotional oxygen from different things, from the breaks that you take, from the connections you have with your immediate family, extended family, from friends. Do a little hobby and take the worry breaks so that you can free yourself from that and do other things that are meaningful in your life. Please do that as parents, so that you have the time, energy, and the emotional space to give to your children. The
great.
second big thing I would say is absolutely a vital thing, is to create that emotionally safe space with your kids. So work on the relationship that you have, work on your listening skills, work on the collaborative aspect of it. That's the biggest thing, again, in all age groups, perhaps not the 6 and below, right? But from tweens onwards, it's really, really, really useful, I believe, right? And the third thing I would say is to get a semblance of a structure each day. It doesn't have to be a rigid structure. You can take each one day at a time. You can, every evening, all of you as a family or individually, sit and say, see how your day has gone and what have you dipped into. So again, I talk often about boxes, right? And so one box is about your role as a student or as a professional or a homemaker or a business person, whatever. And our role has changed. Students are not students as they used to be. So what can make their education, their student life more exciting? What do they want to do about it? Think creatively about it and have a drop down list that my education is not just about online classes. I'll try to do them, but I'll also do these things. I'll
Right.
watch a video, I'll discuss it, I'll call up a friend, I'll make a collage, whatever that might be, right? So that's one box of what do you want to do in your role, uh, wherever you are in your life. Yeah. Second thing is, and this is a good opportunity to do this, because families are again struggling with home health, to say that there are these household chores.
Yes.
Yeah, how do you want to participate? What do you want to choose? So again, have a again that you cannot impose these things. You can't say that this is your duty. always much better. Again, in that emotionally safe space, say that, you know what, these are the things that need to be done. You know, I'm volunteering for this as a parent. What anybody to, you know, anybody helping mom with, dads also need to come up in
Yes.
in a big way in this department and volunteer and say, yes, I will do this. You know, there was a 10-year-old who told me I'm in the Chadu Brigade very proudly. So,
Oh, sweet.
so things like that. So that's yeah, that's the second thing. Third thing is something that gives you joy and pleasure. Choose not just from screen but from other spaces also. Screen is also okay, we are, you know, bound by it right now and
Right.
we can't help
Right.
it. So there will be video games, there'll be TV shows and movies, and even, you know, connecting socially and so on. But there must be certain other things that you have a drop down list of what gives me pleasure, joy and meaning in life, right? And have a
Mhm.
drop down list. And the last thing is family time. So you have these 4 boxes and you say to yourself that I am going to dip into these 4 boxes every day, and I'll make a plan for tomorrow, not for the week, not for the month, only for tomorrow. And that will depend on how my day has gone today. I'll take stock of it and say, this is what I've done. I feel satisfied about this. That might change a bit. I did, you know, 4 hours of screen or 5 hours. I might want to reduce that a bit. And if this discussion can happen occasionally as a family, where the kids can say, see that parents are also struggling and trying their best to, you know, uh, to balance things out, then they might feel more encouraged to do that. So plan one day at a time and dip and give it a loose structure, right? Every day. And that structure again holds you together. You know, you look forward to something, you wake up in the morning and say, oh, I know what to do today because I've planned for it last night. Yeah. So
Correct.
that'll be the third thing that I would say.
Lovely. That's wonderful, Doctor. I can't thank you enough, Dr. Sain, for joining us. And thank you to you and the entire Children First team. Thank you, viewers, for joining in.
My
Please do
pleasure.
check our page for details about Rahat later today. And do stay tuned to the Gurgaon Moms website and our Facebook page for regular updates. Thank you once again, Dr. Sain, and stay safe, everybody, and stay at home.
Thank you. My pleasure, Upasana. Thank you for inviting me. I did think we had such a meaningful conversation.
Such a meaningful conversation, Doctor. Such a lovely conversation. Thank you
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.